Welcome to the Aul Financial Hour Podcast with Steve Aul.
Steve, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I had a great 4th of July weekend. Everybody stayed safe. And I got to look a little bit around this big, beautiful bill, which I think we could have picked a different name. I think it's like the Inflation Reduction Act. Didn't really have anything to do with inflation. And a lot of the stuff, when you get into the bill, it did kind of extend parts of the 2017 Trump tax cuts, which I think that gives us a little bit more play in the Roth conversion areas. It's going to be lower rates for a longer period of time. But a lot of the things in it are so temporary, it's unbelievable. A lot of people love the fact that state and local income tax got moved from $10,000 to almost $40,000. Well, not as many people in the St. Louis area have $40,000 in state and local income taxes.
Right.
And if you do, there's income limitations on it. So if you got $500,000 in income, it's going to limit and you're going to go back to 10. So the benefits aren't quite as well as they make it sound. Getting rid of your tax on Social Security, completely different law. So they really can't do that, but they can give you credit if you're over a certain age. So there's going to be a lot of strings attached to it. As I think I've said it before, I said the person that's going crazy right now is TurboTax. Because they've got to take this great big bill and try to figure out how to get it to work because there are so many income phase outs for the reduction in tips over time. So it's a complicated bill, and the negative part of it, most of it goes away in 28, 29, or 30. So it's not like it's a permanent bill, which was I was hoping that they would have worked towards. Give me something that's permanent, because it's hard to do a long-term plan when you've got maybe 2 to 3 years to implement it.
Right.
And I think that's what's causing a lot of the confusion and lack of motion in the retirement world right now. People are so uncertain about what's going to happen, they're just kind of holding and sitting still instead of looking at it and saying, okay, I know I need an income plan. I know I need a tax plan. I need to figure out long-term care. I need to figure all these things out, and I need to turn off a lot of this noise that's coming in from the government. But it's got me frozen. It's got me just kind of sitting where I'm at, and I'm not going to change anything at this time. And I hate to say it, it's times like this that I believe are the most important time to look at those changes, because I believe that a long-term financial plan should not be based on who's in the White House, what the current tax codes are. We got to look for long-term things, and it gives us something to focus on, because the biggest problem that we have right now is that people are focusing on the confusion that's going on in Washington, D.C., the Federal Reserve. Do I believe interest rates should have come down? Yes. But I can't really blame the Federal Reserve when they're going, we don't know what's going to happen with tariffs. Is this going to cause inflationary pressure? Because we don't know. Right. And that uncertainty, as I think, it's just causing so many problems that it would be nice if the dust could settle.
Right.
If we get the tariffs stuff kind of figured out, then we can go for a direction.
So if you're getting close to retirement, you might remember what happened back to your retirement accounts in 2008. CBS Mornings spoke to labor economist Teresa Ghilarducci on the impression that left.
We have a name for living through that kind of volatility, and it's called scarring. In times of financial crisis, do not talk to your friends or your family about what to do. Take a breath, take a minute, and rely on expert advice.
All right, so what effects do you see that 2008 left on your clients, Steve? And most importantly, does it impact their retirement planning?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we have that people of my generation that have been around long enough, that we've been through 2 cycles. Everybody remembers 2000 to 2002. That was the old joke. The 401ks became 201ks. Same thing happened between 07 and 09. Large declines within the market. So we remember those things. And that's the greatest fear that most people come into. What if this happened right after I retired? How's that going to affect my retirement? And then for myself, I look at it, for me, it was a lot along the lines of me getting into the industry because I experienced 2000. I worked with an advisor that basically said, Steve, don't worry about it. Hold on, it'll come back. Well, it did a couple years later, but it did. And then when I started to see what was going on in 2007, 2009, I actually moved a lot of my assets away from the market because I didn't feel that just buying and holding all the time was the best, especially when we had what was going on, the financial collapse of 2007. So it depends on what's going on out there as to what we should do. And that's what I like about Market Guard, our primary managers. It gives us those things. It takes the emotions out of it. It gives me that non-emotional, methodical, mathematical approach that signal the most important questions that most people ask. Steve, when do I hold? When do I sell? And when do I re-enter back into the market if I make that decision to move away? And that's what I like about it. I've seen it work this year where the markets are a little crazy right now, if you wouldn't admit it. And some of the higher performance and 80-20 portfolio is not fully invested right now. Why? Because the models say it's probably not the best thing to do. So if you'd like to take those emotions out of your investing.
Fidelity, they've reported that people are saving more in their 401ks, but overall the balances are down. Okay, so we're saving more but not seeing the benefits, Steve. Why do you think this is? And is there a better place that we need to be putting our money for retirement?
Well, the idea around it from there, it's every opinion, there's an opposite. Mine, when they said that one was, yeah, that's true. People are saving, but if you have a negative market, the balances are going to go down. So you got to be careful when you look at that as an analysis. Depends on the time frame. I always like it when people say, well, my portfolio did X. Okay, when was that in a good year? How did it do the year before? Oh, well, we're not talking about that. I just want to make sure it does this. And I said, markets don't do the same thing all the time. Markets, the only guarantee they allow us, it's going to go up, it's going to go down, or it's going to stay the same. So it kind of makes it a little bit different from there. But the one thing that I like to look at in that article that it said with it was it says the average account is $127,000. That's the average 401k account. So we start to look at it, and that says there's some great big numbers out there, and there's some smaller numbers, but average is around 127,000. And we start to look at it, and I agree with the thought processes of Ed Slott, a CPA, that he basically says having too much money in your IRAs and 401ks is going to subject you to tax rate risk in the future. Because we all can look at the debt we're bringing in, even with the big, beautiful bill that just came through. It's going to increase that debt. We have to slow it down, or we have to do something about it in the future. And that means I don't believe that the taxes are going to stay as low as they are for much longer. I believe that the opposite parties could come into Congress and they're going to do whatever they can to change the current environment that it goes. So if taxes increase, how's that going to affect you when you start pulling that money out? And we basically put it to the point is if you have an extra large, remember average is about 127. If you have an extra large between 250,000 and 750,000, you've got an extra large IRAs and 401ks. You're ahead of everybody. Mm-hmm. Depending on your pensions, Social Securities, fixed income, and lifestyle, you might spend those assets down during your lifetime. You might. So there's not as big of a problem there. But if you've got a double X between $750 and about $1.5 million, chances are you're not going to spend down all those assets. You're going to pass this tax time bomb on to your heirs. So you have to look at it and say, yeah, I'm getting it at a lower rate, but what's it going to cost my children when I pass it to them? Because the Insecure Act of 2020 says it's got to get out of there in 10 years. And if you've got a XXX 1.5 or greater, chances are you will pass a tax time bomb on to your kids. And that's the thing that we have to look at. For me, it was a different opinion of where we look at taxes. Coming out of my world, taxes was, what can I save you this year? It was a very micro, as we look at it, microscope. Put $2,000 in your IRA account and it'll save you $400 in taxes just this year. Now I look at it in the macro, the big picture. How much am I going to have to pay over time? And when I pass, how much my kids are going to have to pay? I think that's the picture that we have to look at now, is how much our kids are going to have to pay. And I get people to say, Steve, I wasn't planning on leaving any money to my kids anyway. I said, neither was I. But I'd much rather leave it to my children than to the IRS.
Yeah, 100%.
I just would. So it looks at it and say, where's this picture at? Currently, the bill extends the amount of time that we might have to do conversions. But there are some negatives within the bill that if your income gets so high, state and local income taxes get hit by it. So we're still trying to get all of the details of a 900-plus page bill. So we're still trying to get all the details of how that's going to affect. But I think it's the best thing that you can do for your retirement success. Reduce or eliminate taxes in retirement.
When car buyers go shopping, they take out several vehicles. I know I've done this recently. I test drove probably about 4 or 5 cars, and I went back and forth. And, you spend about 15, 20 minutes per car. And if, you're really interested, sometimes the car dealership, they'll say, hey, take the car home for about 24 hours. See what you think. Well, I got thinking here about retirement. Wouldn't it be nice if you could give that a test drive? Because planning for retirement is not something you do in 10, 20 minutes. This is a extended, decision. And I wondered if you'd ever seen anybody test drive their own retirement, Steve.
Mike and Rochelle came to one of the dinner presentations, sit down and talked with them. They said, Steve, we really like the stuff that you were talking about. Income planning. How do we replace that paycheck? Taxes. Where are we at going to be in those taxes? But we're not going to retire for about 4 or 5 more years now. We'll give you a call then. And I said, now's the time to talk when you're in that retirement red zone. 5 years, over 59 and a half, 5 to 10 years from retirement, that's the best time to look at your retirement planning. And when we looked at it, they were around 60, planned on retiring at 65. They had savings. They were saving almost 20% of their money into their 401k plans. They were going to have nice Social Security checks because they both worked, and they both had pensions. So we had to look at this and try to figure out what would be the best for them. And I'm going to say a lot of you are going to be in that same boat. So we look at it and say, what could we do? I look at the fact that because of the size, if you're putting that much into your 401k, you could be creating that tax time bomb. Let's shift some of those dollars that you're saving in the 401k. My rule of thumb, get enough to get the match. If they're giving a match, I don't care if it's 50%, 25%, whatever they're going to do. Free money's free money. Get as much of that as you possibly can. And then there are other avenues that we can use for the additional dollars, after-tax money. There's the life insurance financial tool that can put us, and that money grows tax deferred. If we take it out properly, it's tax free. So there's great advantages to different ways that you can possibly sell. A lot of people say, Steve, I've never heard of that. It's been around since before the 401k. So my idea around it is I would rather take money and pull it out of that always taxed pocket, IRAs and 401ks, and put it into a never taxed pocket. Roth accounts, Roth conversions, life insurance financial tools. There are tools out there that you can get tax efficiency with. So if you're in that retirement red zone, over age 59 and a half, 5 to 10 years out from retirement, give us a call. Let's start looking at what you're wanting to do so that we can get you pointed in the proper direction before you actually retire, and we can't change the way you're saving.
Thanks for listening to the Aul Financial Hour Podcast.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Aul Insurance Group, LLC, AIG. Aul Financial Group, LLC is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth, LLC, IPW, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Aul Insurance Group, LLC, AIG are not subject to investment advisor requirements. IPW and Aul Insurance Group, LLC, AIG are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Aul Financial Group, LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Aul Financial Group, LLC.
This radio show is intended for information purposes only.